first of all, the modern understanding of religious culture is very localized. For example, if you are studying the history of religion, whether you are, from Oxford or Harvard or Cambridge, all you are thinking is this history is like India has the 4 Vedas. In the Western world, they had some kind of shamanism, then paganism, and then Christianity. And then the Middle East, similar, and then finally Muhammad and Islam. And, the rest of the world must be shamans, blah, 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 blah. But actually, when you look at the Veda properly, without any external bias, without any politics, without any political colorings, you see actually the Veda was universal. The Veda belongs to everybody, not only to India. You can see in languages, as I was just saying a while ago to you, that this Russian language, there are a lot of Sanskrit words. And similarly, in English language has so many Sanskrit words that it actually is a language that I'm going to copyright and take over the intellectual property right. And I'm joking. But you see, most of the languages, especially the European languages, are known as the Indo-European languages. They're all Sanskrit-based languages. Because of the past 18th century scholarship and 19th century scholarship, they were politically biased. And so they were saying like English was coming from Latin, this one came from that. It is not true. It is actually a direct compacting system. If you understand the science of mantras and the Sanskrit grammar very well, you will see that it is actually a direct result of Sanskrit. And so I can explain all these things in details, but right now we don't have the time to go into this. So if you are looking at the Veda as a universal phenomena belonging to humanity, it was and is the first written record for humanity, for everybody. So if you're looking at it, and when you're looking at it, then history, where the migration, the sailors, and the sailors came to Asia, and they discovered India, all this becomes untrue, because linguistically you can see that they are all having the same background. Even Chinese language, which is supposed to be not related to Indo-European languages, has actually the mathematical notations as their language system. It's the same as Sanskrit. So, in fact, the whole world was having a similar philosophy. The only difference is that because of astronomy and astrology, there are some different presentations. Otherwise, it was a universal concept. There is no different Vedas. There are 23,000 different verses. And they are called Rig, means Rig usually is translated as verses or this, but I translate it as formulas. And this formulae is for you to understand the meta science. And then there is, of course, Yajurveda. In the Yajurveda, they go into explaining the deeper details of the science. There are very deep notions, because I was saying, like, it is almost like physics, but superphysics, metaphysics, meta-science. And so they have very accurate principles, mathematics, many things, grammar, everything to understand the science precisely. So, and then the mantra part of things, how to calculate the mantras are in the Samaveda. And the practice part of it, as an example of practice, it is in the Atharvana Veda or Atharva Veda. So they are one Veda, but many denominations come out of that, many shakas. There are 16 shakas. And then there are, of course, agamas, tantras, like this. If the Veda belongs to the whole world, there are certain interpretations, certain higher principles. When you're studying these higher principles, it's called Tantra. And when you're looking at world religion, you take any one religion, they all have this culture, they all have these tantric cultures. But the only thing is that today's idea of Tantra is very sad, because the last century Victorian prudery has been put on into Tantra. The Victorian culture was contrasting with their ideal against a non-ideal tantric culture, which is not true. You can look at the Testament and you will see Tantra. You see, I do not know if you are aware of the Song of Songs. If you look at the Testament, there is a Song of Songs. And then there are commentaries written by the Sisters of Loyola. All these things say that Testament has another finer aspect, and the finer aspect is called the Tantra. And you can see, if you know the science and symbology, you will see that Lilith, the goddess, before Adam and Eve, is the same as the Purusha Prakriti concept of the Veda. So you will see that even in the Quran. That's why you have the belly dancing culture. Belly dancing culture was so famous in the Arabic world. But today it is almost unknown. Today it is just a backdrop hobby. And throughout the world, and therefore Tantra is, even in the Chinese world, in the Taoist world, the Taoists call them Taoism. Yeah, the same thing. That the word Tao comes from the Sanskrit word Ritta. Ritta means right, rituals, right, wrong, in the sense of not positive, negative, but this way and that way, So Ritta became, because Ritta is a retroflex R, which you don't pronounce, so it becomes Ta and Tao. So the whole world was practicing Tantra, but it was a higher education of the Vedic culture, of the spiritual culture of the world. The Tantras are the underlying principles of the Veda. It's not like what modern scholarship is saying. In modern scholarships, they are saying that this was 3000 BC, that's 2000 BC, and then evolution, the concept of evolution, which was the preoccupation of the past scholarship, the scholarship that is today should be obsolete, because it's very old. These concepts are, like, you don't have to put the Veda 3,500 years only. It can go further backwards. In fact, I can see icons or images that takes the Veda back to even 17,000 BC. There are a lot of icons, even in Europe, that are of Vedic origin and culture. For example, even like the Druids, the English Druids are relatable to the Dravidians of South India. We know that the Dravidians are related to the Cretan languages, so in North Africa. So you have a universal culture that was overlooked by the English scholars of the 18th century, where they wanted to say that only the sailors discovered Asia. The sailors didn't discover Asia. The whole world had communication. You can see from the language systems. So Tantra is coming from that. The modern day Tantra is coming from the influence of Sigmund Freud, and Carl Jung. And this became very famous in the Western world because of feminism. And because of feminism, this culture of modern Tantra, or what I call neo-tantra, there are two aspects of neo-tantra, but just say this is neo-tantra altogether. It's a psychological, experimental facility. But when we are talking about Tantra, there is a classical Tantra, and that's from the Veda. There are enough material in the Veda for me to show where Tantra originates from. Matter is actually energy according to physics. And if it is energy, and now you imagine the whole world is only a flow of energy. Yeah? And then the Vedics and the Tantrics, they are saying, since this is a karmic experience, what is beyond karmic experience? As I was saying, light, and what is our sense of light is only a limited range of light, a limited range of sound. When you consider these non-limitations and look at the whole energy system, then they're saying that it is infinite, because anything that is limited to the finite cannot manifest itself. There's no dynamism, there's no movement, it's insensate, there is no consciousness. So there cannot be any process of manifestation, any change. So it has to have consciousness. This is what modern day scientists are today considering the consciousness theory. If you look at new millennium science and today's scientists, they are slowly forced to recognize this consciousness theory. It's just beginning. Today it's beginning. So when you're looking at this whole concept of the world as infinite and consciousness, and you call this infinite and consciousness Brahman in Sanskrit, yeah? And you come from a specific tradition, let us say one sampradaya. So you will call it Vishnu, or you will call it Shiva, according to your tradition. If you are defining Brahman as in a specific way, then it becomes Vishnu Agama. Or if you're defining Brahman in a specific way, it becomes Shiva Agama. So there are several agamas, there are 6 agamas. Even Buddhism for us is an agama. It is not an external system. How academical world says blah, 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 academics, external. We don't believe all these things. To us, it is part of the Veda. When the Brahman is full, it is called Brahman. When the Buddhists, what they are saying, when there is no attributes, then we can call it sunya, or empty. So in this way, we are looking at different systems. If you are imagining, just imagine for now, don't take it seriously and get into problems, but just imagine that there is infinite consciousness, transcendental consciousness, and then you are coming out of that consciousness, and the whole process of coming down to becoming a human being is called the process of karma. You know, usually karma is understood like you do good, you get good, you do bad, you get bad. That's not how karma is in the Tantras. In the Tantras, it is the whole genesis and how you are here. And then how to go free from this genesis, how to get free from the finite world of experience and go back to your infinite nature. Yeah. So how to let go of this is your concept of karma. So how to get rid of this, the Tantras are saying, is that you have to live your life completely. And to live your life completely means to live as yourself, not as me. So, like a cat is a cat, a dog is a dog, and you are yourself, and a giraffe is a giraffe. So if you can live your life as a giraffe or a cat completely, without any neurosis, any limitations, then your purpose of coming to this world experience is complete. And that is the way you overcome karma. You cannot overcome karma by doing good and doing bad. This is the problem of the last century Protestant culture. The misinterpretation of the Protestant culture became good and bad, black and white. And it is a very subjective, limited way of looking into things. In this way, what we are saying here is like you are living your complete life. By living your complete life, because you're not an accident in the history of the cosmos. Because the cosmos is infinite and there cannot be accidents in the concept of infinite. And if it is, then you are not incidental, and you're not accidental, you are real, and you are here, and you have a purpose to be yourself, and the purpose is to realize your whole true nature, and through that's called Dharma, to have a purpose in the picture of the whole cosmos. And when you have a purpose as a person, then you have freedom. Otherwise, you are living fictions. If you have no Dharma, it's only fiction. All the time it is fiction. You are imagining things, all sorts of imaginations. And you can even have 10 people with you. They call it multiple personality disorder. So if you have these kind of fictions, you will never have your potential, which we call it artha. Artha. And if you have the potentials, by having a true nature, you have your potential. By having your potential, then as a person, you are always in a state of bliss, which is your natural right, your latent right. Your innate right is to be in bliss all the time. And if you are in bliss, that is called kama. Not lust, not love, nothing like this. It is called bliss. These 3 principles, dharma, artha, kama, are very important principles to experience freedom or moksha. Without these 3 principles, you do not have moksha. And if you don't have moksha, then you are trapped in the finite. And you are only looking at life with the limited ideas. So how to have all this freedom here is Tantra. And when you have this freedom, there is no subject here. There is a universal expression of consciousness. And this consciousness is getting, and that another universal consciousness, and that she and he have love. And that's why we have the rite in Tantra where we have marriage as the central principle. Because it's very important to honor a human being, not use her as an object for my experiment for my weekend. And the left-hand principle is even worse because they say you are a goddess. So how do I treat a goddess? Buy her a chocolate? So it's a whole different phenomena. The Tantra is a very interesting science. And I am doing it only because it helps me become a human being. Otherwise, I'll be like, buying chocolates for a woman, Luckily for Tantra. You see, how we relate with the world, how we see things, how we understand, are all as per our mind. See, in Tamil, there is a saying, a child sees an elephant, a carpenter sees the wood grains. So a child, because it is a child, a baby, first thing that is something that relates to play. A carpenter sees the underlying factor of wood. So who you are, how you see, how much of freedom you have, that's how you see things. So when you are having no freedom, that's what we call neurosis. A culture of being not having freedom becomes neurosis. When we are neurotic, we will not be able to appreciate anything in this world. The fear overrides us and we only think about ourselves and our insecurities, and we project our insecurities. But when you are studying Tantra, the insecurities are no more. You are looking seriously into a life of wholeness, a mind that is free of fear, a mind that is only capable of love, in the pure word sense of the word. And when you're capable of being yourself, the world experience is very beautiful. And then you qualify yourself to say, I can love a human being. Otherwise, you cannot love a human being. You are only projecting neuroses over neuroses and insecurities over insecurities. So Tantra is really very important because otherwise you can see clearly that people are expressing neurosis in the name of love. The word love itself is of different meaning to different people now. Sometimes love, some people think it is just physical sex. And love is actually not just physical sex. So if you are going to understand love, first of all, you have to be wholesome so that you can express this. You can project your love to the other person and not just lust. When I'm teaching Tantra, there is a very common problem where a lot of modern people, they don't understand love more than carnality. Carnality is just like appreciating the body. So their culture of body relationship, subject-object relationship has been so impressed, so imprinted in their unconscious that they are not able to actually allow a person into their life. It's very drastic. It's very frightening sometimes for me. Like we are so limited into carnal sexuality. So how to get a wholesome idea of sexuality? That will become love. You have to accept, number one, man has to accept a woman as a total being, not as just body. And if you can accept a wholesome being, a wholesome person, then there is a chance that there is love. But then to the tantrics, this love is actually from divine, from Shiva and Shakti. And if it is Shiva, Shakti, or Krishna and Radha, or Kamadeva and Rati Devi, or somebody, it is very divine. So you have to understand what is Shiva, what is Shakti, what is Radha, what is Krishna, what is Kamadeva. Without all this, there cannot be any transformation of yourself into a wholesome being. And without any transformation, how in the world can we accept to say love? It's just a play. It's a Gestalt psychological play. I project my own fears. So in the Tantras, we actually go through teaching a human being to get rid of fears. In the Buddhist Tantras, they call this the Chod practice. Chod, C-H-O-D. And so they slowly get rid of all your subjective identifications and fears. And in the Indic Tantras, the Shiva Tantras or any one of the Tantra systems in India, we also do the same thing. You get rid of your subject, idea of subject. That's what I was saying, like when noumena and phenomena. So even noumena is a limiting idea that you are going to be born from this time to this time you're going to go. And this creates fear of death. Fear of death can be a latent fear of death. A latent fear of death can take you away from appreciating your partner. You will be thinking, why? In the unconscious, you'll be thinking, why should I have a relationship? Why should I have a woman? Why should I have this? Why should I have that? A woman will think the same way. What is the point of having this man in my life? Because this fear of death says, your life is so short. What is the big point in having a marriage? Marriage is a bad word. Marriage means ownership. Marriage is not ownership. Marriage is the only way to go to nirvana in these systems. I always say for the modern tantrics, for today's tantrics, I always say, I will teach you to walk. It is nice, you can walk in this dimension. As soon as you go to water, you cannot walk, you have to swim. So, Shiva and Shakti are like very subtle, very transcendental. This whole idea that I am Shiva and you are Shakti is not that right. It will be like, if I walk there, I will go ploop inside. So it's only in different dimensions. In the dimension Shiva and Shakti, Shiva and Shakti. Here, I am a spark of Shiva and Shakti, little fine, little spark. And in this spark, I model my life as per the Dharma. Yeah? There are a lot of modern ideas that I am Shiva, you are Shakti, but the dimensions, they forget there are different dimensions. And so the idea is that when you understand your Dharma, when you understand your true nature, only then your unconscious will allow you to express the freedom. Only then you can say, I have a relationship. And so, of course, we take that she is divine in origination because she is the reflection of Shakti. So she is, this concept is a little difficult because like in chemistry we say H2O is water, but you have to study chemistry to understand what is H2O, otherwise it's meaningless. So similarly you have to study the Tantra, what I call the meta-science, to understand how a woman become a goddess. And she is a goddess, and then I have to have the culture of accepting the goddess. I don't see her as just an object, I see her as a goddess. And I have been cultured by this. I've been from very young brought up to understand that she is a goddess rather than an object. And so in the process of doing the pujas and everything, I realized that she is a goddess. And so finally, it makes sense for me she's a goddess because I have the science, the tantric science, to understand she's a goddess, and I also have the culture to understand she's a goddess. And this is very different from the American idea of the mother goddess, where in the mother goddess culture, they are saying that women are fertility goddesses. When we were monkeys, and then we became next level human beings, and in the process of that, we became men became territorial, hunters, women became gatherers. These are preconceptions from this time. It's nothing to do with the realities. And from this concept, we are looking at women as gatherers, and from the position of gatherers, we are thinking that, especially women's study or feminism says that women became fertility goddesses. Fertility goddesses means, I don't know. And they use these icons from Mesopotamia, Indus Valley, where women with big breasts, big hips, and then they are saying that they are the fertility goddesses. And this is called the mother goddess culture. It was used in the 70s to explain woman a newer way of sexuality rather than the masculine dominant sexuality of the time. So this is different. We are talking something else. We are talking meta-science. And then you have this goddess culture where after several decades, they realize that still human relationship is lacking. It's not working. At least in the American context, in the journals in the Berkeley, where the women studies, they write all these things. So they're saying like, because of our gender preoccupation, we are always gender focused. We are always giving a lot of attention to gender. She's a woman and I'm a man, like this. And so because of this, we are not able to have a harmony. And so they are saying like, let's take her as a goddess, an hypothetical goddess. So it's almost like a fiction of the time. You just imagine that you're a goddess. But in the Indic systems, you are studying and you know that you are a goddess. It's a meta-science. And so the Buddhist system also, you know that you are Tara. You are Prajna Devi. It's not just imagining for one Sunday weekend, I'm a goddess. It's different, you know? So therefore, there is a science and a culture to make you a goddess in the tantric traditions. And then, of course, this other mother goddess and goddess, they are political decisions. Out of these political decisions, nobody wins. The whole expression, when in the infinite there was nothing, yeah? There was no creation, there was no sun, there was no moon, there was no world, and how the process started. What they are saying is that the potential of the Shiva creates the freedom of Swatantraya. And from his Swatantraya manifests Kali. And Kali is actually his own desire, his own love. And that gives the freedom and the potential. And from that comes the world expression. And the expression in the Sanskrit languages is the Sanskrit language itself and the Sanskrit grammar itself. So in the Bible, you have this verse. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and God was the Word. For the Tantrics, the Word was Shiva's word, because in the beginning was the Word. In the beginning means before sun, moon, stars, earth, there was the Word. And the Word was with God. And who was that God? For the Tantric is Shiva. And the Word was God. And the Word was God because she was with him together. And when there is an expression, then she unfolds. And that expression is called the Sanskrit language. And therefore, the word is, she has a big tongue. Have you seen Kali properly? She has a huge tongue. Like this.
Yes.
Yes. This tongue represents the word. Yeah? Tongue represents the word. And her hair is like this. Yeah? Because she called Muktakeshwari, where she's free. Her hair is free. The hair in this philosophy of symbols is actually the notion of no time. When the hair is bound, then we are recognizing the sun and downwards. When the hair is free, she is expressing above the sun, the stars, the moon, and all these type of things. Because she is Kali. She is the beginning. She is change. She created time. She is not time. She is not space. So she is always wearing the hair like this. And then she carries a sword. And the sword is actually a notion of separation, the duality, the world of duality. Because when you separate something, you cut it, this right and left. So when you're cutting it, you're creating the experience of this world reality, which is called in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Sukham and Dukkham. Yeah? So when you're looking at Sukha, Dukkha, the world of pain and pleasure, you are in this dimension of experience. So that is her sword. And she has a lot of hands as a skirt. And these hands, you know, I was saying, like if you're looking at the end of time, like what Ilya Prigogine was saying earlier on, Ilya Prigogine was saying there is, in thermodynamics, there is energy dissipation where it becomes zero level. And if it is that zero level, karma becomes nothing. There is no karma. There is no cause. There is no action. There is no result. So it's all zero. So therefore, all the hands symbolizes the end of karma, because she is above all this creation, these gross experiences. So that is what you were doing in the temple in Gokarna, because the Maha Shivaratri is Maha, infinite or absolute chaos, or the world is in complete dissolution or dissipation. In respect of that, every 12 years, we have this ceremony where you are like worshipping to Shiva consciousness. Maha Shivaratri, as the word is Maha, it means infinite actually, but which is misunderstood by the academical world as big, great. And Maha Shivaratri, there are two notions of Ratri in the Vedas. One is the solar dissolution, the solar world. And this world, when it ends, it is called a pralaya. And Mahashivaratri is Mahapralaya, the whole cosmos, the whole universe, everything is coming to a standstill. And on that day, there is only infinite consciousness called Shiva. Shiva means the auspicious. And he's the only one who can deliver you from further transmigration, further coming back into the life in this karmic existence, the life of cyclic birth and death. So to respect that, the end of the cyclic birth and death, you don't want to go through transmigration because you don't want to make blunders in relationships and feel so sad and come back and have another relationship and another relationship. You want to have a complete beautiful relationship and go back to Shiva. So Maharaj Shivaratri, every being is welcome to go back to Shiva. The idea of magic was very English. When the English was ruling India, they came across Egypt via the French. The French were ruling Egypt, and there were a lot of records on Egyptian cultures. And then they discovered in between Egypt and India is Iran. And the word magic comes from Magi. Magi is a specific Zoroastrian culture where they are worshipping. And with no understanding of this culture, the academics of that time thought that this is magic. And then they came to India and they said, okay, only Christians have miracle, and you are incapable of miracle, you can have magic. Yeah? So this is how the idea of magic came. And then Helena Blavatsky, and with her books, she wrote a lot of books. And at that time, she was very influenced by Immanuel Kant. And so she decided that, Immanuel Kant divided the world into noumena, the mind, phenomena, the external experience. And because of this division, she created a whole new world of philosophy. And the philosophy was very magical in experience because there's only noumena. Phenomena is separate from you. So if phenomena is separate from you and noumena is all that is, every emotion, every transformation of your emotion entails you to enlightenment. So she became enlightened overnight. And for the traditionalists, we are talking about infinite and finite. Any finite experience is nothing to do with enlightenment. For us, it is definite that enlightenment is a process of relinquishing karma and being with the infinite consciousness. So that takes a few lifetimes. Don't have to worry about that right now. But then, the whole thing is that these ideas of magic was slept on to Asia by the English of that time. And now it is like every book, every textbook carries that in India they're doing magic. And even Indians themselves are believing that they are doing magic because their 300 years have been ruled by the English. Last night I saw a small documentary about how Indian TV was saying that there are people practicing magic and this is not healthy for you, blah, 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 blah. There is no magic. It is a fiction of the English of the time. There's no magic. And again, coming to the sexuality aspect of it, it was the concept of Jung with feminism. When Jung was trying to talk about freedom and his idea of freedom and psychology, the American feminists borrowed these concepts in the late 60s and 70s. And the second wave feminists, what they call the second wave feminists, where the social culture was the focus, where they felt that women were suppressed and they wanted the freedom of women. So they incorporated Jung's ideas, and they created a body awareness culture, a culture where you feel well with your body. So women of that time, they used to take off their clothes and dance in the sweat lodges. And this was freedom for them that time. And so as they were progressing, the Jungian culture became very pronounced in the USA. And that is what we are looking at today, where women, after they were talking about the limited body, then they were talking about the man's idea of sexuality, monogamy, blah, blah, blah. And then to free themselves from this monogamy, this blah, 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 they thought, okay, let's make our own culture. And in the process, they used Jung to reorientate their sexuality. In the process, they were like making experimental sexualities, and they called that Tantra. Because Tantra has three studies in the Western world. The academical world is studying Tantra differently as a political concept. Then there is the scientists like David Bohm, Dr. Fritjof Capra, they're studying the science aspect. And then there is this secular aspect where people are experimenting with themselves. The urban concept, the urban lives, they are trying to make meaning. And they are like, okay, let's experiment with sexuality today. Let's look how much freedom we have, blah, blah, blah. And this is how sexual facilitation, workshops, and retreats came into the world. For us, Tantra is actually science and meta-science. Yeah? When you explore the idea of E equal to mc squared further, you go into meta-science. So in that sense, I always tell the students to acquaint themselves with physics. So when you understand physics well, then you can appreciate Tantra better. And for which we start with reading any books written by David Bohm, who is Einstein's buddy, and The Wholeness and Its Implicate Order, or Dr. Fritjof Capra and the Tao of Physics, or The Turning Point, or we have many more books like B. Alan Wallace for beginning. And then as we understand the rough ideas of science, and then we go into the details. And as we go into the details of Tantra, then we go into the Tantric ideologies, Tantric philosophy, Tantric meta-science. And then we go into like the classical texts. Then we read the Shiva Agama texts or Shaiva Agama texts, like Paratrasika Vivaranam, Spandakarikam, all these texts. But we are reading not only these texts, but also the four Vedas, its commentaries, because we believe that these texts are actual commentaries for the Vedas. They are not separate, like what modern academics are thinking. We think that it is actually, I can actually show them these are belonging to the four Vedas itself and four different interpretations. We start with physics and we end with Tantra. And there are a little bit of ritualizations, but the ritualizations are very important. The ritualizations address not your, you see, usually our mind, we are using our conscious mind. In the ritualization processes, we tap into the 90% mind or the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind, as every scholar say, is unexplored. And how to explore this 90% mind? So that's Tantra, how to explore, how to allow you to use this 90% mind and have a life based on your 90% mind. If the mind is 90% untapped, and if it knows past, present, and even future, then why are we limiting to our 10% mind? We don't even trust our mind anymore. And that is why I say read David Bohm, because he's talking about the whole fragmentation of our selfhood because of modern education. So he is a physicist, a very reputed physicist, and a friend of Einstein. So he's also saying the same thing. I'm also saying the same thing. I'm saying that ritualizations helps you discover the unconscious mind and be efficient in life.